better than if that was the case. So now we're going up 10% in 2012. That's actually gone up almost 9%, and not in the last 10 years, but in the last 7 years. They've actually added another 9% there. Is that crazy? And so we started looking at it. We're taking almost 65% of the people in the United States are taking medication on a daily basis.
You're going the wrong way!
Okay, we're going to play on this next one. So have you guys ever heard of a side effect? Okay, just so you know, there's no such thing as a side effect. There's only cause and there's only effect. A side effect is something we make up to make it say that it's okay. Like you take a medication and there's side effects and you're like, well, no, there's causes and then there's effects. There is no such thing as side effect. This is the effect of the medication, or there's no effect of the medication there. So the average average drug label right here has 70 side effects in the United States, like for prescription drug use. So 70 possible side effects there. That's for one. What if we take two? It's not that you have a possibility of 140 side effects. It's exponential. 70 times 7 is 490 possibilities. And the average person that's over 65 is taking 7 or more medications a day. Thinking about the possibilities of thousands and potentially hundreds of thousands of side effects that can happen, and we're wondering why we can't get healthy and stay well. So, we're going to do this together. You ready? Here we go. You're going the wrong way. There we go. Okay. So then what it comes down to is this. So what is the myth there? So John Robbins of like Baskin and Robbins fame, and he literally, I love people that stand by their principles. He was going to inherit the whole Baskin and Robbins fortune there. And he said, you guys are killing people. I can't do that. He literally renounced his entire fortune. He went on to make his entire fortune back, but it was only because of his passion for saving lives rather than being able to be passive and letting people die and profit from it. I honor him for that. But what he did is he wrote a book called the Okinawa Diet. And typically we think that as people get older that they get fatter. And what he found is that here's the modern American diet. They get fatter as we get older, but the Okinawan diet, they actually get thinner as they get older there. And what they also found is that as Americans get fatter, they actually start to not live as long. But in Okinawa, it's one of the highest concentrations of centurions in the entire planet. So as they got thinner, they actually lived longer there. They were living on average 30 years longer almost 30 years longer many times than the people in the United States were. 30 years. Think of what you could do for 30 years. Think of the impact that you could have for 30 years there in this planet. Like think of your great-great-grandchildren that you could have for 30 years. And so that's why we want to start talking about it. It's not our destiny to get fatter as we get older. It's our destiny to live longer as we get older. That's our job there. So I don't know if you guys have ever met this lady. A lot of times we think age has everything to do with, as you should start slowing down. So my mom's 78. This is her. She's leaving base camp to climb up to Mount Everest right here at 78 years old. Here she is on a motorcycle, and where was she? In India there. And she wanted the helmet because she wanted to protect her brain because she didn't trust people out there because her life was valuable to her. Here she is. This was her. See down in that valley down there? She started down in that valley that morning and climbed all the way up there. She was only halfway up at that time. She climbed over 16,000 feet at 78 years old. What was interesting is that she's at the Bodhi tree. And as she's standing there and she's standing in line, all of a sudden these children, she looks over at the guard, and the guard says to her, it was talking to these children, and he sends them and points at my mom, and they walk over and they start putting their forehead on her feet, and they start kissing her feet. And he said, and afterwards she goes, why did you do that? He said, well, I told them that you're the oldest person here today and that you should be respected. See, I think a lot of times we stop respecting ourselves. We stop thinking that we're magnificent and incredible. We start thinking just because we're old that we don't have any value to people there. And so think about, she's 78 right now. The 79.3 is the life expectancy of somebody on this, like in the United States right now. Does that mean that she just gives up at this point, or does she fight longer and harder? She started planning her next trips. And that's the point. That's what I want from you. She's my inspiration because there's no limits. There's no possibilities of what is possible. Yeah, she's had her challenges there. Yeah, she's had her health issues there. But the point is that if she can do it, who else can do it? You can. You just got to have be able to see the vision there. So then when it comes down to it, maybe she just has good genetics, right? We look alike. Maybe it's just about genetics. Right now there's 600, ready? 600 billion pounds of pesticides put into the environment every single year. Do the math on that. 600 billion pounds. And guess what? In 10 years, that's 6 trillion pounds, right? So how long, think about where do those pesticides go? They stay there. They stay there. They stay in you, they stay in the water, they stay in the plants, they stay in the ground. Like those 600 billion pounds don't disappear. According to the World Health Organization, they estimate that 220,000 people a year directly die from pesticide poisoning. Russell Blaylock, who's a neurologist, what he said is that the average person is ingesting approximately a heaping tablespoon and a half a day of pesticides just by being alive in this world. Like literally, it would be as if you were taking a spoonful of pesticides, ingesting it on a daily basis there. See, our genes, it's not our genes, it's the environment that our genes find themselves in there. And guess where our body stores toxins? In our fat. Is it one new wonder why we're getting fatter? So as we have more fat, our body will store the fat there rather than getting rid of it. And that's why, has anybody ever tried to lose weight? They lose weight, and all of a sudden it comes back right back on there, even if they're doing the right things, because many times they're toxic. So we're going to come down to a couple things. This is really important. I just need to hit this, because what happens is I see some people that have been to 5, 10 classes, right? Freddie and Sherry have probably been like 30 classes or 40 classes over the years. That's like, literally I told my wife when I was setting up, like, this is Freddie and Sherry's spot right back in the corner. They sit there, like the same place. I'm going to like put a bench there or something. But the problem is that it's all about mindset, or how we approach this. We know what the problem is. We know what, and we're going to go over a lot of the solutions after break there, because there's so much that we have. But we know what the problem is there, but we can't solve the problem with the same level of thinking that we created on that. We have to have a common sense approach. And so what it really comes down to is where we are right now in our life is a result of the habits that we have and the habits that we keep. So what we typically find is that, you know, like we can have positive thoughts, and it's hard to make positive thoughts. It's just as hard to have negative thoughts too. Either way, positive and negative thoughts, they're just patterns in our brain there. And so this is one of the biggest things, is that you can work either way. You can put your energy into having positive thought patterns, or you can put your energy into having negative thought patterns. It's just where your focus goes. It's what your lighthouse is then. And so there's a book that was written by Carolyn Dweck. It was called Mindset. And it's probably one of the greatest books that I've ever read. In fact, I bought several cases of it. I made sure my kids read it. I made sure my daughter's boyfriend read it. Like that was kind of like, somebody's like, hey, go talk to the father. I'm like, don't talk to me until you read Mindset. I gave a copy to my team. I handed out like candy there, because it was a big thing about reframing. And so what they've talked about in this book is there's 2 types of mindsets that people have. One is a fixed mindset. One is a growth mindset. So what a fixed mindset looks like this is that your whole self-worth is based on who you are right now. Okay? So, and as opposed to a growth mindset, is your whole self-worth is based on who you can be. So when somebody tries to go on a diet and they fail and they have a fixed mindset, then it makes them feel bad about themselves, and so then what they do is they quit. So when somebody has a growth mindset and they fail on a diet, they create this to-do list of things that they can do differently next time so that they can become who they were created to be. Does that make sense? A fix is who people told you that you are, who you say that you are. The growth mindset is who you can be there. This fixed mindset is you stick with what you know because it feels comfort. That we stay in our comfort zone. Anytime we go out, it creates instability. Basically, the growth mindset, we get our confidence by pushing in the unfamiliar, and we're always learning. That's the biggest key. When you look inside yourself and you find all your true passion is on the inside, with a fixed mindset, your true passion comes from mastering your skills regardless of how good you feel. So some days you're not going to want to be on a diet. I guarantee you that. Does that make sense? Some days you're not going to want to eat healthy. Some days you're not going to want to exercise. Some days you're not going to want to to be nice to people. But the thing is that regardless of your mood, knowing that your passion comes from the great things that you do, not what's on the inside. Like, what in here doesn't impact the world. What you do out here is what impacts the world there. Failures define you. Failures are only temporary setbacks. It's all about the outcome. If you fail, then all the effort was wasted. How many times and I have several people that this is like maybe their 5th time that they started the advanced plan. Or the 5th time they've tried a challenge there. And they've failed several times before. And guess what? On the next time, they nail it. Because it was all preparation. But I also have people that have failed one time, and guess what they still are right now? They're failures. Because they haven't even tried. They just stopped. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So what I want you to really think about is moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset there. And really start checking yourself. If you were over here, I'm going to suggest that you get the book. It's called Mindset. If you're over here, I'm going to suggest that you get the book. It's called Mindset. Because you'll keep doing, if you're in a growth mindset, you're like, I want to read that. I've already downloaded it from Kindle there. But what I need you to understand is there's something called neuroplasticity.
Many scientists believe that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-traveled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep traveling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
Is anybody having any neuroplastic changes right now? like new ideas, new thoughts? Like just by being here, you're actually changing your brain. That's so cool, isn't it? So here's how we do this, and I'm going to kind of run through this. But basically, here's the process. And just so you know, in your Dropbox, you're going to actually have a copy of the PowerPoint there. We're going to have a copy of the audio. Well, okay. Well, I forgot to hit start. But I have 2 videos backing up, so you'll have a copy of the video on there too. But basically, we have a thought. So a thought is that I want to lose weight. Okay. And then my feeling is that when I lose, I feel this way because I want to have the energy that I want to have. And so then I take an action. So I come to the makeover and I decide that I'm going to do the challenge. And then I get my results and I lose 10 pounds. And then my belief and thought is that I can lose weight. And so my feeling is that I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. The actions are I keep doing the steps on a daily basis and then I get better results. And then all of a sudden I start seeing myself as a winner. I start seeing myself as a victor. Same thing happens is that my belief is that I've tried before and I failed. I feel like I'm a failure. I'm not going to do anything. I get 0 results. See, I told you so. You see how that works? And so check when you're having a challenge where you are, where the problem is. It's usually not in the actions that you're doing, but it's usually in the beliefs that you have before you actually take the actions. Because if you have a certain belief, you're going to act in a certain way there. So let's look at a growth belief there. Success and health are based on, oh, that's not a growth belief. That's actually a fixed belief. That's a typo, but just, no, it's a typo. Success and health are based on luck. So maybe you just kind of lucked out with good genes. Maybe you're lucky, successful. All those people that started Facebook, they were just lucky, right? Oh, I guess that was the door. It was stuck. And so this is a limiting belief there, but a growth belief is that skills can be learned and practiced. Like there is no such thing as luck. They're just skills that can be learned and practiced there. Fixed beliefs, I'm afraid to fail, I'm a failure. We can change that fixed belief into a growth belief. Failure is simply an opportunity to begin again. It's time to do it more, this time more intelligently, right? We probably, and it's that cycle, we just keep on learning and learning and learning. So really the thing is that, Thomas Edison, here he is, he takes 10,000 times to find the light bulb. What if he quit on number 2? Colonel Sanders, like he had to go to 999 different stores to try to sell his chicken recipe. I wish they had 10,000 stores he had to go to because probably less people have fried chicken. But the point is that Michael Jordan, he said it wasn't the shots that he made, but the 20,000 days of practice, the 20,000 shots that he took in practicing that one shot that made the difference there. What we really look at is if you haven't failed 1,000 times, if you hadn't failed 10,000 times, you haven't learned the process on how to make it work. And so that's why we're doing the challenge. The challenge is not for you to be perfect, right? I don't believe in perfection right now. What I believe is in 30, 60, and 90. There's no such thing as 100% perfection, but you can have a 30% goal. Or, does it make sense that we're going to try to master that 30%? Because what happens is by the time you get to 90% perfect, you're going to actually find that your vision of where you want to be is so much greater. And so then you're going to have different goals there. So really, we got to change our limiting beliefs. And I talked about, this is something I put into your packet, but basically it's affirmations. I literally have affirmations every single day, and I put my affirmations in there. You don't have to use them, but these are things that I'm saying to myself all the time. I have them literally on my shower at home. I'm washing my hair, and I'm saying, I'm the architect of my life. I build its foundation and choose its content. I'm courageous. I stand up for myself and others who can't. These are things that I'm telling myself to create, because I can tell myself who I want to be, or I can, you know what I mean? Some people can say I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a failure. Most of us, that's that self-talk, right? We're going to have to listen to the voice in the side of our head. We might as well be in charge of that voice. So I put suggestions for you guys as to, those are my affirmations. Don't make my affirmations your affirmations, by the way, because I don't want you to be me, because you would suck at being me and I would suck at being you. But this is the plan right here, and this is really what I want to have this is what I'm going to suggest to you. Because what happens is that, a lot of times, and we were talking about this the other day, we're grieving our potential in life, right? We know that there's so much more in us, but we just go through the day and we get distracted every single day about where we are. And so really as far as when I tell people to write goals down, how often do people write their goals down usually? January 1st, right? For the most part, we all wrote our goals down January 1st, and then maybe we looked at it, but we never wrote it down. So the thing is that when we're writing goals, a lot of things, I want to lose weight, I want to be rich, I want this, I want that, I want that. That's assuming that you don't already have those things in your life. Does that make sense? That is assuming that you're not already great, you're not already amazing. So really be careful of the words that you use. I desire, I choose, I have. I already have this. These goals become like the lighthouse for you to be able to lead your day there. Be careful, and then they also have to force you to become a different person. If you get to be the same person going through your day with the goals, they don't force you to change. And so really my goal for you though, and this is the thing that's always worked best for me, is I write my goals. I only have 5 of them. My brain can't handle more than, but I choose not to have more than 5 of them. But I write down my 5 goals in the morning and at night before I go to bed. Most people couldn't tell you what their goals are. I'm like, hey, what are your goals? And you're like, well, I want to be rich. You know what I mean? We make them up on the fly. We're just kind of winging it. But so if you write them down in the morning and you write them down in the afternoon, guess what happens? At the end of 30 days, you've actually written your goals and reviewed them 60 times. That's pretty awesome. That's more than most people do in 60 years of their life, on January 1st. You're accelerated there. The other thing that I do a lot of times is I write down my own quote of the day. Not going through the internet and finding somebody else's thing, but I write down my own quote of the day for myself. It's my own mantra through the day. It helps me get through the day, helps me stay focused there. And I encourage you to do that. And then write down the targets that move you forward towards your goals. Just write down one thing for each of your goals that day. It doesn't mean you have to accomplish it. is just write down a target for that day, and it's a little checklist. They don't have to be big things; they can be small things that will move you in that direction. So if your job is to lose weight, maybe your target to get to your ideal healthy weight, maybe your target could be to go out and actually clean out your cabinet one shelf. Does that make sense? You don't have to clean out your whole house. Or maybe I'm going to actually go buy exercise shoes so I can actually start to exercise there. Or maybe I can just go for a walk around the block. Or maybe I can just turn off the TV at one time there. And at the same, so then this is the last part basically that before we take a break. You know, basically if you're over 40 years old and you don't smoke, there's a 70-80% chance that you'll, sorry, I think I typoed that out. 4 bullets to dodge. If you're over 40 and don't smoke, there's a 70-80% chance you'll die from 1 or 4 diseases. Heart disease, cerebral, it should be, and you do smoke, there's a 70-80% chance that you'll die from one of these diseases. And I think that's the thing, is that we look at that a lot of times it's the same way with sugar. Like we look at smoking as causing these things. You're going to have a pretty good chance of actually having lung cancer if you smoke. Not everybody that smokes is going to get lung cancer, so we can't apply it to everybody else. But what happens is the same thing with sugar. If with the sugars that we're eating, with the insulin that we're having, it's pretty much without the sugar, the odds of you actually getting like any of these problems is very little. But if you have it, you're going to get the problems. Does that make sense? So that's what I want us to think about as we go into the next section. We're going to be crushing some awesome stuff here. I want to let you guys go to the bathroom. I want you to drink your waters, get some nuts there. There's some apples out there. What I do want you to know is a couple things. Number one, we have the T3 DVDs. We're going to go through those later on today. They're on sale. We have the nutrition book. This has all the nutrition plans in there, more information in there than you could ever imagine. This is a great one to give to friends and family as a Christmas and February present. We have the Cruise Ship and Nursing Home book, which is all about the 5 essentials and understanding it. This is the Cancer Killers book. This one is about how to eradicate and kill cancer. The Genesis Factor book is a book that we use in churches that's about, where is your, from the inside out, where's your true source of healing come from? Why do you do things? And this is the Winning My Race, because it's all about, look, we're commissioned to win a race. And so they're fascinating books. They look at the same information from 5 different perspectives there. And then the last part, before we go to break, and I just want to make sure that I hit with you, is to... If you make sure you turn in any of the order forms that you have so that they can have it ready for you. That way we don't have a big crush at the end of it. The reason why we do this is to make sure that you have the resources that we're going to cover in the second half there. All right, guys? So ready? Break.
I'll check them out.
Nice to meet you. Oh yeah, good. I'm glad you're here. I hope you're having fun. We'll talk afterwards. That tells me something amazing. Maybe we should walk about it. That's amazing. That's not amazing. That's hours on that. That's super cool. That's super cool.
Dr. Russell, this is my friend Carla.
No. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I hope you're learning to do this. Good. Well, I think that what would be the biggest goal here?
Oh, wait.
Okay. You start seeing, are you starting to see some of them? Good. What's interesting is that the average diabetic was up at 65 pounds for 2 years ago. Because you constantly have that insulin up all the time, so your body's converting the calories. And that's why you're like, I'm trying to eat good, but I can't eat good. We have to break that cycle. And there's a whole bunch of stuff like what you see on diabetes.
I've been inviting her to dinners for over a year.
I know you were telling me that.
Because there's a lot of conflict, so
Okay.
hopefully I'll be able to go to once. He doesn't work on Mondays.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure we're only doing them on Mondays. How'd the quality come up?
Not like I was.
This is the light? Really? You want to, I have a light, but it might be too bright.
Let's see what you got. What's it look like?
Well, how's your boat? Good. Well, what's like
You want to just screw that into the top of yours? You want to screw it into the top of yours?
I'm just gonna stick this next to it. Behind it. I got this.
I don't like that. Just see what it looks like. How does that look, Chuck?
Come take a look, Doc.
Big difference, yeah. Big difference, right?
Oh, really? And it told me
Something over it.
the time to stand. So just standing up, and now you're really better. I
Better?
Yeah.
Pro adjuster, that's what it's called. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Still gotta get you some traffic codes. What do you do for a living? You still working? I'm gonna go retired. What did you do? I'm a mechanic. I work in all 4 different places. Construction equipment, self-employed. I'm a machinist. The last 4.5 years, I spent actually rebuilding the diesel engine and building the transfer. Oh, it did? Wow. And I was one of the doing that. I did, there was fire. Set up for good. And some of them go, I've seen them go 3 or 4 times. But when we were rebuilding it, we just thought that they were put it simple. Because they only use standard connect, they only use standard bearing, the rods are kinky at all. Well, the rods get reconditioned or replaced. The rods got reconditioned or replaced. Reconditioning now. It's like all of a sudden there's light. Which one are you trying to do? Left, right, up, down? I'm trying to go up with it. To crank it higher? Yeah, I was going to go a little higher. That's the one you want to turn, is that one where your thumb is. Now it should go higher. That's the limit. That's it. Daylight fluorescent. Cool. Can you change the intensity at all, or is it just one? Yeah, it helps a lot. That's what it's for. Oh, gotcha. It's too dark. It has nothing to do with him. Okay. What's this thing? It's a Bluetooth setup. Okay. What does it do though? Just a connection? No, it's a recorder. Okay. It's filming it too.
He's doing 2.
Well, that's the camera also? Oh, okay.
See a little eyeball?
Yeah, I saw that. I was wondering. First I thought it was just like a microphone.
They're desperate looking for somebody to replace me.
He's going to get started with the second half.
Is it chilly for you? Okay, good. No, I was afraid that it was going to get too hot.
I'm doing a video here.
Now when I got all my clothes on, he's probably thinking I'm going to be too hot. What?
Good talking with you, and hopefully someone I can start you got your number. If you feel you need to talk to me, call me. I can talk to you about anything you want. Maybe sound arrested somewhat. I'm going to do it while it doesn't mean it doesn't I got a flag. It's the reason that number one reason. dumping in the body before as soon as you come out, we're about to
All right, does everybody have their seatbelt on? All right, just put it right on there. Lock it in. So I just want to talk to you a couple things that we had talked about at the break. One of the things that we hit on, the number one question or the number one statement I get from people is that it's about sugar. Like, you're talking about how bad sugar is, but then it's still about sugar because I can't give up sugar. Does that make sense? Like, I like my chocolate, I like my bread, I like my potatoes, I like all these things. And just so you know, it's not that you like them, it's your insulin likes them. Your insulin is controlling your brain. Like, it's not you controlling it. It's not a conscious thought. A conscious thought is that I am not going to have that. An unconscious thought is that when your chemistry is controlling you. And so a lot of what we think is normal is only because of what we've been doing up to this point. If we live a life of high insulin, we're going to love the sugars there. And so it's got to be, sometimes changing those habits is hard. But it doesn't necessarily have to be hard. It can actually be interesting. Does that make sense? A lot of times we're like, oh, it's just too hard to give up. I'm like, hey, let's get curious. Let's find out how interesting this is. Let's enjoy this. Hey, I want to see what my body looks like when it has full energy rather than having all my energy diverted into fat there. Does it make sense? So what I want to encourage you is not to look at some of these things as hard, but to actually look as interesting, as in part of a process there. And I really want to encourage you because for me, it's about self-worth. Like, I don't think that there's anything more valuable than who we are. And we break our self-worth down so often. And the reason being is that many times we lie to ourselves. See, we say we're going to do something, and then we don't do it. And then what happens is because we don't do it, we feel bad about ourselves, and then we feel that we're less worthy, and then we do less things. And then we become afraid to actually commit to something, to actually say we're going to do something, because we're afraid we don't trust ourselves. Does that make sense? We don't trust ourselves to do the things that we say we're going to do. And then the problem is that if we can't trust ourselves, how can other people trust us? Right? And so we start to find that we become isolated more in our lives there. We stop having good relationships and deep relationships. So this, for me, is an issue of self-worth in saying that if we say we're going to do something, we don't have to do it all at once. We can do small little steps. So for breakfast today, I'm not going to go down a bag of, of sugar, right? It's like, hey, I won, great. So then we have a small victory, right? And then we start feeling like a victor, we start feeling better, and then we're like, hey, lunchtime's coming up, I'm going to take a different action, and I got a different result. Now my thoughts are, hey, look, I'm a winner on this thing, and we start to have this different cycle. And that's really what I want for you guys. All right, so here's what we're going to hit on the second half. We're going to nail sugar, we're going to nail fats, we're going to nail proteins, we're going to just go all the way through this, and I want to just hit on some high points here. One thing that really blew me away, so obviously grain-based desserts are our highest concentration of sugars, okay? And I'm not just talking about, what are those, the Pop-Tarts or something like that. Most bread would be pretty much considered a grain-based dessert, okay? So the second thing is yeast and bread. So that's our second highest thing of sugars. I don't know how chicken became our third in the United States. It doesn't make any sense to me. But we also look at the average person is drinking 90 calories a day, 90 grams of carbohydrates of sugar. So just think about this: for every gram of carbohydrate that you have, for every 5 grams of carbohydrates that you have, that's 1 teaspoon of sugar. Ooh. So if the average person is drinking 90 grams of carbohydrates in the United States a day, that's the average. So that means I'm a little bit lower. Somebody else has to be higher. Wow, that's a lot of sugar going into their system. And by the way, it works on a different system. Like it raises the way that the sugar from alcohol gets into your body. It raises that insulin level so much higher. And in fact, what they find is that many times that people that are alcoholics, it's not the alcohol, it's the blood sugar. So that's why they have a second drink. It raises up the blood sugar, crisis, body comes in with insulin, crashes the insulin, you finish the glass of wine, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to finish the bottle. Does that make sense? Like, well, we don't leave empty bottles in our house, open bottles in our house, right? And so, but what happens is that's why it's usually that's why it's the second drink is the hardest one not to take. Does that make sense? Once you take that you have that first drink, it's incredibly hard. The other thing that happens is when we start thinking about sugar, we also talk about, remember, it's the thought that raises the insulin. So just by coming home thinking that I don't want to drink, I do want to drink, I want to drink, or I don't want sugar, I do want sugar, all of a sudden you're raising